You know, history is packed with strange stories and unsolved mysteries. But every now and then, you find one that doesn't just feel unsolved. It feels impossible. It feels like a glitch in the system, a little error in the code of reality itself. And today, we're going to look at three of those moments. It's a pretty wild question, I know, but these stories, they really make you ask it. I mean, what happens when the operating system of the world just crashes, even for a split second? What kind of error messages does it leave behind? Okay, so to get our heads around these events, we're going to look at them through this one cool lens, the simulation anomaly. Now, don't let the fancy words fool you. Just think of it like a bug in a video game, an event that just plain shouldn't happen based on the rules we all live by. So let's open up our first case file. We're heading to Tokyo, Japan, back in 1954. It all kicks off with what seems like a totally ordinary guy on a business trip, but the documents he was carrying told a completely different story. He gets to customs and hands over his passport. The officer looks at it and then looks again. The country's name? Taurid. Ever heard of it? Yeah, neither had they. When they questioned him, the man got angry, grabbed a map, and pointed right at the nation of Andorra. He insisted that was his home, Taurid, and that it had been there for 1,000 years. The authorities, totally stumped, put him in a hotel room with guards at the door for the night. But by morning, he was just gone, vanished from a sealed room. And here's the real mind vendor. His reality, the one backed up by his passport and his own memory, was in direct conflict with ours. For him, Andorra simply didn't exist. It was Taurid. And he genuinely couldn't understand a world where that wasn't the case. And look, this wasn't just some guy making a mistake or pulling a prank. The proof was right there in his hands. His passport looked totally legit, and it even had stamps from Japan and other countries from previous trips. He was carrying different kinds of European money. He had business papers. Everything about him seemed 100% real, except for that one huge detail, where he was from. So you're left just scratching your head. Was this guy some kind of master conman who pulled off an impossible vanishing act? Or, and this is where it gets crazy, did he somehow slip into our world from a parallel one, a world almost identical to ours, just with one tiny change on the map, and then, just as mysteriously, slip back? This idea of people crossing worlds, well, that leads us right to our next case. All right, for our second case, we're jumping way, way back in the time machine, all the way to 12th century England. This one points to a biological anomaly. The glitch wasn't on a map this time. It was inside human beings themselves. So picture this. In this tiny village called Woolpit, two children, a brother and a sister, just appear out of nowhere. And here's the thing. Their skin is literally green. They're speaking a language nobody recognizes, and for a long time, the only thing they would eat was raw beans. It sounds like something straight out of a fairy tale, but this story has been written about and passed down for centuries. Now, after a while, the girl, who ended up living longer than her brother, she learned to speak English, and she told them where they came from. She said they were from a place called St. Martin's Land, an entire world deep underground where the sun never fully shines, and everything is in a constant state of twilight. She said they just followed some cattle into a cave and heard bells, and when they came out, they were here, in our world. I mean, what do you even do with an explanation like that? It's almost weirder than the problem itself. It throws everything we think we know about our planet right out the window. An entire world beneath our feet? With green people? It feels like a character from a totally different video game accidentally loaded into our level. Our final case file, honestly, this might be the most terrifying one. Because this time, the glitch wasn't about place or biology. It was behavioral. And it didn't just affect one or two people. It infected an entire city. 400. Let that number sink in. 400. In the summer of 1518, up to 400 people in Strasbourg, France, were hit by this bizarre epidemic of dancing. And for weeks, they danced, and they danced, without ever stopping to rest. But let's be crystal clear about this. This was not a party. It was torture. People who saw it wrote that the dancers were crying out in pain, their faces were just masks of agony. They were begging to stop, but their bodies just wouldn't let them. They were prisoners of some unknown force. The city officials were completely lost. Their best guess? They thought the dancers just needed to get it out of their system. So, get this, they prescribed more dancing. They actually built a stage and hired musicians to keep the beat going. and the result was an absolute catastrophe. People started dying from heart attacks, strokes, and just pure physical exhaustion. The cure made the glitch 100 times deadlier. Now, modern science has some theories, of course. They talk about mass hysteria, or maybe a toxic mold growing on the local bread. And those sound plausible, but do they really explain it? How could a psychological impulse or a toxin make hundreds of people physically override their most basic instinct for survival, the need to just stop and rest? It doesn't quite add up. So here we are, 3 completely different events, separated by hundreds of years, but they all share that same feeling of impossibility. So when you put them all together, what are these echoes in the code really trying to tell us? Well, first we have a geographical glitch, a man whose personal map of the world was just different from ours. It suggests that maybe reality isn't as solid and fixed as we think it is. Then there's a biological glitch. Children with an impossible skin color, from an impossible place. It hints that maybe the rules of life itself have different versions out there. And finally, a behavioral glitch. An entire city whose programming was hijacked by a fatal virus, forcing them to act against their own will until the very end. So, are these just odd, random stories we file away under unexplained? Or are they something more? Could they be those rare moments where the rules of our world bent or broke and revealed that the code running everything isn't quite as perfect as we assume? It really makes you wonder, what other glitches are out there, just waiting to be noticed?